Now the last and final calculation is the one that will result in monies earned or in invoicing. We're going to calculate advanced billings, and there's two different ways to do this. I'm going to take you through the longer way, but for some people it's just more logical, and then I will show you the shortcut. Both of them will result in the same answer. Let's go ahead. Looking at page number 7.5, there's several blanks, and a lot of them are just transferring information over. The first one says at the top half of the page, labor and material costs to date. That's simply information taken from the facing page middle column. So if you'll write those in, where it starts out 5,000, 64,000, 28,000, and so on, just transfer all that information down to that first column. Job number 4 and job number 5 will also be both $8,000. The next column is to represent the theoretical profit that we just calculated on the previous page, starting with job number 1 of $1,250, job number 2 of $16,000, and so on. Go ahead and transfer those over. Job number 3 is $7,000. Job numbers 4 and 5 are $2,000 each. And the final column in that upper half is just the total of those two numbers that we just entered in. So job number 1 will be $6,250. Job number 2, $80,000, and so on. Job number 3 is $35,000. Job number 4 is $10,000, and job number 5 is $10,000. That amount, if you will transfer it down to the bottom half on the far left-hand column, I'll explain to you what that number is. And then I'll talk to you about what the alternative method is to get it. So I just want you to transfer those numbers down to the bottom left-hand column, starting with $6,250, $6,250, $80,000, and so on. What those numbers are what we call advanced billings. Most contracts that we, the contractor, might sign into allow us to actually bill the customer on a monthly basis, sometimes even more often than that. And that billing is based on how far along we are on the job. The reason for it is contractors oftentimes don't have adequate cash reserves in their bank account to be able to fund the entire cost of building a house. You might have a house that's going to cost $150,000 to build. If the contractor has to wait until 3, 4, 5 months later to get paid on it, that means they'd have to have all that cash in the bank to be able to pay for it. Well, they usually don't. So they will contract with the buyer and say, you need to pay me along the way, a little bit each month, so that I can pay all of my subcontractors, all of my materials, and all those things. And so those are called advanced billings. Now, that means that on job number 1, based on this calculation, we have the right to send a bill to the customer to charge them up to $6,250. Now, to know if we can bill them for the entire $6,250, we have to look at how much we billed them for so far. And the next column says we haven't billed them at all. This is the first month that we have calculated that. So how much can we bill that customer for on job number 1? $6,250. Are we underbilled or overbilled? We're underbilled. So in the underbilled column, write $6,250. Now, job number 2, we have the right to bill them $80,000, but for whatever reason, we have billed them so far $90,000. Okay? Are we underbilled or overbilled? We're overbilled by $10,000, so in the overbilled column, put $10,000. Job number 3, are we overbilled or underbilled? We're underbilled by $15,000. Job number 4, we're right on the money. We can't bill them any more than we already have. And job number 5, are we overbilled or underbilled? Overbilled by $5,000, correct? Okay, so how many invoices are we going to send out this month? Just two. Job number 1 and job number 3. Okay? We won't be sending. Will we send a check back on job numbers 2 and 5? No. No, we don't do that. There was a reason that we were overbilled. It might be that originally the contract permitted us to get a deposit. We've got that deposit. We certainly can't bill them more until we've used up what was on that deposit. Okay? Now, I told you there was an alternative, a shortcut way to calculate that advance billing that will arrive at the same number. If you will take the percentage of completion on job number 1, how far along was job number 1? What percentage? 12.5%. And if you multiply that times the total bid plus change orders, you'll see that you arrive at the same number. In other words, 12.5% times 50,000 equals $6,250. Does that make sense? How far along are we on job number 2? What percentage completion? 80%. What's the total billings plus change orders on job number 2? $100,000. So you take 80% of 100,000. What do you get? 80,000. You see, that's just a shortcut way, get you to the same number, and you can, whichever way is most logical for you, it works. Okay? Will there be an entry for this last calculation? In reality, there will be for 2 of the entries, 2 of the amounts, right? Job number 1 and job number 3, we're going to send a statement. And so we've got to enter into our books. We're going to have a debit to accounts receivable for $6,250 on job number 1 and a credit to progress billings for $6,250 eventually. Okay? That will probably occur next month or in the following month after we've had time to calculate these. Any questions on those 4 calculations? So let's quickly review. The first one we went through was to distribute expenses, right? So we calculated how to distribute expenses. What is our basis for that? We use the labors and materials spent on each job for that month, calculated what percentage went into each job of the total, and then use that to distribute. See, if we had, let's imagine that we had a job out there, and this month we had only worked with one job, job number 12, whatever that is, okay? That's the only job. All of our purchases of materials, all of our labor had gone to job number 12. Is that feasible, that would be the case? Mm-hmm. Sure. A lot of construction companies, they might have one big, huge project they're working on, and all of their costs were on that job. Then would it not sound feasible as well that all of your expenses would also burden that particular job, that your receptionists, your utilities, your ad all went to associated with that particular job? So that's what we use there. Okay, job number, or calculation number 2 was to calculate the percentage of completion. And what does that tell us? How far along we are, what percentage we are. If we're 10% along or 20% along or 50% along, that's its purpose. Calculation number 3 was to determine the theoretical earnings. And who's that for? For the boss, for whom? The bank. If we need to send, construction companies are always showing banks and prospective buyers their financial statements, simply because banks and buyers oftentimes want to know if a construction company is financially stable enough to be able to support that level of a project. Okay, so in order to show a company that we are in fact financially stable, we might have to calculate this theoretical earnings number. And then the last one, and the one that actually results in cash coming in, will be advanced billings. Okay? And to do that, we just look at what percentage completed are we. We multiply it times the total bid plus change orders, and that becomes what we can bill up to that amount. Okay?